All right. Poteliūnaitė. Poteliūnaitė.
Poteliūnaitė.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Welcome everyone to a new episode of Humans on Air, where humans meet superhumans in the field of AI, blockchain and business. And today we have a very special guest, all the way from Lithuania, now living in the Netherlands, Gabrielė Poteliūnaitė, or something like that. How do I pronounce it correctly?
It's Poteliūnaitė.
Poteliūnaitė.
But it was perfect that time.
Yeah, I do my best.
I respect.
You're investment manager at APX. Welcome, great you're here. Let's talk about AI and talk about you and how you ended up working and living in the Netherlands. So first of all, can you introduce yourself shortly?
Of course. A pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Bart, for having me. Very excited for the talk. So yeah, shortly about me. So as you said, from Lithuania, grew up there, finished high school there, but then as I was growing up, I always knew that I kind of want to leave. So then I lived for a bit in Barcelona, lived for a bit in Germany, went on exchange in Italy, and then just kind of like choosing where to go next. And then since I had no idea what I want to study, so I ended up picking Netherlands and Utrecht just because they had a liberal arts and sciences program. Yeah. So then I did neuroscience, psychology, and statistics as my major and minor tracks. And that's how I kind of got into research. Yes.
Why those tracks? Neuroscience is kind of something not common to choose.
Yeah. So I actually didn't even know about neuroscience as a subject, that it existed before I started the university college here. And I thought I'm going to major in economics and mathematics, but then I tried economics and mathematics, and then I was really bad at it, I think, at that time.
That's fair to say.
So then I was like, okay, no, I need to respecialize. And the neuroscience, I find it overall, like I find that, like, you know, learning how the brain works and all these, like, you know, different pathologies. And now I'm also super interested in the sort of like the, you know, the interplay between, for instance, psychedelics and the brain, how they alter altercations. So yeah, I got into neuroscience, psychology kind of goes hand in hand, and then statistics, something concrete, and I just liked it a lot. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to test myself out in neuroscientific research a bit more. So I've done a few internships in the lab, and then I realized, okay, this is definitely not for me, just because I find the field is super interesting overall, but the actual work that you do is, you know, you sit in a lab like without any windows, nothing in front of a screen, and then the participant has to click a button while staring at like one dot in the darkness. So then I was like, okay, I need something a tiny bit maybe more social. Yeah. So then did a few internships. So I worked at Otrium, which is one of the startups here in Amsterdam, with supply chain and business intelligence there. It was great. So I just joined them when they were like around 20, 25 people. Now they've grown into, I think, hundreds or so. It was a great learning experience. Then I worked at NLC, which is a medical technology venture builder here in Amsterdam as well. So we used to look for patents and research publications and then try to commercialize medical sort of like research and, you know, bring it to the market. But as it is, the bringing into the market, you know, medical tech, therapeutic medical devices, it takes a really long time. So then I was like, okay, wanted something, you know, something that would be quicker to implement, maybe quicker to bring to the market. So then I left that. So that's why then afterwards I joined Otrium. So now I mix up the timelines a tiny bit, but besides that, and then I was like, okay, I want to do masters in something. And then started applying, started thinking, okay, what to do next. And then I started my master's in artificial intelligence. And then, hence here I am now. And then I got into VC actually pretty randomly. So in my first year of my master's, I did a VC fellowship and then got kind of like thrown into the world. And then I was like, before that, I actually did not even know what VC stands for. Like, what is this venture capital industry? But then COVID hit, moved back to Lithuania, and then joined the Pan-Baltic VC fund Change Ventures. So we invested mostly at seed stage into Baltic founders, so out of Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, or as well as Baltic founders abroad in anywhere in the world, really. And now I joined APX since September, so that's a kind of like a first check, very early pre-seed investor based out of Berlin, but I'm working for them based out of Amsterdam. So yeah.
Nice, and they're covering global market, or?
So we mostly do European, so we do mostly European markets or European founders also abroad. So we've made a few investments into European founders based in the US, in Israel, and I think those are the two markets sort of like now, but we're also potentially testing out, maybe we should also expand into a bit more fringe and other undiscovered markets.
And why specifically just European founders?
Yeah, so I think it mostly comes. So we're just also seeing like how much physically we as a team can cover. So most of the team is based in Europe, right? So we're just seeing that. I think if we want to now, get access to the best deals that are happening, for instance, in the US, that would be very difficult because it's also a super competitive market. Other markets we just not studied enough, or they don't have the right connections or the right people in. So that's why we kind of like focus mostly on Europe. And it's also partly because we have LPs, so limited partners that invest in VC funds. So both of them are also European based, and that was kind of like the focus. So we have Porsche, as you probably know.
Yes, we do.
The cool brand. And Axel Springer, so also one of the biggest media publishing houses, is also one of our main LPs. So that was kind of the European focus, so to say.
Back to your studies.
Of course.
You started your master in artificial intelligence. Why? Why back then?
Yeah, it's a very good question again. I think it's I asked myself that at some point as well, but it's I think I knew that I'm very interested in tech from early on, and then neuroscience kind of tied in well because I did artificial intelligence with the track in cognitive science, my master. So then I don't know, it kind of made sense, I suppose. And then I think I was also I was romanticizing artificial intelligence as a field a lot. I think especially I think it's my master's. We're just going to be playing around with robots, or we're going to be talking about I think it was very interesting, the topic also ethics of AI and the whole interception, regulation, all of that.
Which is still a hot topic.
Super hot topic, 100%. But then I think I didn't realize that it's mostly it's a lot of mathematics, a lot of mathematics, and a lot of, we also, when we just started, it was pencil on paper, kind of writing code. And it was so I think the craziest fact that I studied 3-4 years ago, I think my master's, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I don't know now, but so much has changed ever since, I did my master's. So I feel the program now probably everything that I learned is probably so almost primitive probably for the kids that are, doing their masters in AI now. So I think that's also very interesting to see how quickly the field has progressed ever since, I was a student still.
Yeah, and actually nobody can be experienced in real AI of today, right?
Yeah.
If you say the studies from a few years ago already are outdated. And how do you look at the AI market at the moment? What's happening now?
So I think it's a super busy market, right? So I feel especially now from the fund's perspective, all the startups that we're seeing, there's so much happening in the AI field. Obviously the new wave of generative AI, and there's so many, kind of different application areas that they're focusing on and different focus areas. So that's huge already, right? So I think it's in the past few months, there were more than thousands of different startups that came out of Silicon Valley in generative AI, the same we see in Europe, right? So it was the same as Web3 wave happened, and then everyone jumped on it, and then all the brightest minds were working on it. It's kind of similar that is happening now with generative AI. But with AI overall, I think it's been already a huge wave for the past few years, but now it's even I guess more enhanced. But it's always that, sort of the question always remains, or the doubt in, I think, in investors' mind, especially mine as well, is what's really is it really AI, or is it just that everyone just plugs in the word AI everywhere they please to, and then it
works in marketing, of course.
Exactly.
I do more AI, so
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It opens doors.
Yeah, 100%.
How do you analyze if there's really AI involved? Or?
Yeah. So I feel the funds, to be honest, VC funds, we're never really good at assessing or doing the due diligence on the tech side. I think it's because it comes from a lot of different stuff. So first of all, I think a lot of people that work in different funds, they're not just super technical. So they're mostly focused, on what's the team potential, what's the business potential, what are the financial predictions, and so on. Maybe the market potential. But not as much on the tech, because you're investing in people. So you're entrusting that the founders have the capabilities to have it figured out, and they will build, that algorithm or that AI software. However, I think it's, and I have some anecdotal evidence of some of my friends that had super technical companies, and then there were, some of the funds that were doing the technical due diligence, they were saying that it's almost laughable, the questions that they've asked and the detail that they looked into. So I feel just funds are not equipped. Some funds also have better advisors, for instance, that, they can always go for, more specific kind of technical questions. But and I think it's changing, shifting a tiny bit now. So like more like deep tech or kind of like very tech-driven funds have the technical due diligence done better.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, something could be said also for the fact that like, would you want an investor kind of like controlling your code and looking, okay, is it actually that well done? Because what kind of capability do we have actually at assessing it?
Yeah.
So,
but it's not always a fair analysis then, if there's not the real expertise behind it. It's just like, okay, I like you, you can talk really well, and the idea is good, and we have seen some tech.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I don't know if you can call it fair and fair. I think it's more, maybe it's more in the sense that I feel like at early stages, especially like I can only obviously talk about our kind of like positioning with the fund now, because I feel like I don't know much what's happening at like, growth stages or later stages. Maybe there's, more emphasis on that. But I feel like at earlier stages, you're looking at, okay, they have some sort of a tech, right? Which you assess to some way, like a product in some way or another. But you're mostly backing the founders and the team, right? And as I said, like you're backing that these people will be able to figure it out. So you're mostly looking, okay, is the market potential big enough for this? And is the team able to deliver in the market? So sort of like, what's the team fit also when it comes to the product and the market? And then, I guess, yeah. So in some ways, you could obviously grill saying like, okay, if it's, especially I think when it comes to like really complex technology, I think that's why then it's very important that, you have the relative networks, you have the advisor, you have the team members that can really assess it. So I think it comes with like, really deep climate tech stuff, or like, I can imagine like deep tech, or like even like super complicated AI.
Yeah.
I think then, yes, then I think you should have the capability to assess. But then I think, again, it comes at a bit later stage, because I feel like once we're investing, people don't sometimes even have like a product, actually. No. They have like a little MVP or a deck, but not much of a, something to really assess.
Should it be a red flag for founders if they get stupid questions or just not really in-depth questions about the AI?
It's a good question. I hope. I don't know if I went probably for sure. Like I've definitely asked some stupid questions, and I feel like no one is immune. I don't know if it's necessarily like a red flag, but I feel like it's more. Sometimes it happens that I do think that some investors just don't come prepared. That's one thing, and second of all, that I feel like they don't. Some people are just too transactional, or like they just have everything very much scripted, so never. Like you never touch upon different, like very relevant subjects, right? So if it's a red flag, I think sometimes the conversations or the interactions can be, I can imagine, very unpleasant. So I don't know if you have any similar experiences or what's your dealing with it.
I've spoken to several and more than several VCs over the last years, and every conversation, most of them were good, but there were some bad experiences in terms of not having a real conversation, just getting the feeling that they're ticking the boxes and having the fixed script and just needing all the information for their analysis instead of just listening to the real story and the vision and what we're building. I understand what you mean. Is AI something that can solve this challenge?
Yeah, so that's exactly what I wanted to touch upon now. I think after you said that the fact that everyone, is just focused on, whether you're taking notes or like really having like very scripted answers, just because you are kind of bound by time and you need to like extract as much good information as possible, right? Like over that short span of time that you have with the founder, like whether 30 or 45 minutes. But so 100%. So I think AI as an industry, and I think we spoke about it previously before we started recording, in the sense that like we said, like the industry is super outdated, right? So there's so much, it hasn't been innovated, and it's just like that's the biggest kind of like a paradox, because we are investing in the latest, most breakthrough tech, but the industry in itself is super backwards, right? So I feel like now there's a new wave, and for sure, like I think funds are starting to use AI actually for different, for instance, like scraping for different founders, or like creating algorithms that could let them know like, okay, certain teams split up, there's these people working in this market, that's the knowledge that they have, maybe they could become good founders, etc. So like I think there's some funds I know that are creating these algorithms. In our case, we use it, for instance, for so I use it always in the calls for note taking, or like summarizing, writing an investment memorandum. So cases when you decide to invest in a company, like writing up a case for it, like looking for the competitive analysis, the market analysis of the company, etc. So I feel like we use it a lot for these things now, as well. Emails sometimes as well, generating. But I think for me, it's just there's so much, I think, menial tasks that are being removed, and that allows us, I think, also as investors, maybe it's another thing. It will allow us to also just then have more time to like prepare for the cases, or really spend more and more time to like kind of like one-on-one, or like the more conversation, have a bit more of a realistic conversation
to bring
with the founders. So I'm a big believer that I think it's gonna relieve us from like all these mundane, menial, administrative exactly tasks, and I think it's gonna free up our like mental and cognitive capacity. But I don't know what you think about it. Are you also, because I feel like there's different camps, right? People that are saying, oh yeah, damn, like they're gonna just take our jobs, and the other part that is saying, okay, it's actually gonna empower individuals to some extent.
Absolutely. There are two camps, like you said. So there's the utopian part that's looking at it from it's changing the world in a positive way. We should embrace it and use it to make the world better. And the dystopian part is like, oh, it's going to destroy everything, take over, and they become smarter than human beings. I'm absolutely on the utopian side, so the positive side of things. I think we should incorporate it in all our businesses. That's why I asked you about how you treat it yourself internally. AI can bring so many benefits in terms of creating increased efficiency, effectiveness, but also bringing a lot of good to the world. There are great examples of voice AI companies making people that are disabled, that are not able to speak, for example, to speak again, or if they have never spoken, to give them a voice and therewith part of their identity. But also people that have no hands, that they can use speech technology to get computers going and other technology-driven tools. So for doing good, I think there's a lot of opportunities. On the other side, it's internal efficiency, effectiveness, taking away the administrative parts. So I'm absolutely at the side of the positive manner. In addition, what I like, for example, with ChatGPT and all the other conversational AI tools now, it's all about asking the right question. And I believe in real life, we do not ask enough questions to each other to get to know each other and to get the human interaction. So it's all about asking questions to get to understand the real meaning behind what people say, what people mean.
Giving the right prompts.
And giving the right prompts and you want information, you need to ask the right question. If you want something from you need to ask the right question instead of, and this is what we also need to give to future generations. Instead of saying, oh, it's scary and it's going to do all our homework. No, we need to teach them how to incorporate it within the learning system. Asking the right question: with information do we want? And it's the same with the internet. Internet arrived 20 years ago. It changed everything. But look at where we are now. It's part of our lives, and it makes our lives easier in many ways. So yes, I'm on the positive side, and we shouldn't be scared. But and then I'll give the word back to you. There are a lot of challenges. A lot of challenges involved in keeping it safe, responsible, ethically. Available for everyone. So there's a lot of challenges that we need to tackle. Question to you: how do you see the challenges? Where are they, and how can we solve them?
I mean, partly I think I mostly agree with everything that you said, in the sense that I'm also more of a believer that this could, be super beneficial for society and empower people, versus that, kind of like diminish the individuals. However, yes, I think it's so powerful, right? That the fact that it's crazy the amount of what was it, I think in 5 days they gathered I think OpenAI got ChatGPT got 1 million users, right, or something. So it was the fastest growth that we've ever witnessed. So I think the fact that there's such a mass adoption, the fact that UI is created, like the user interface created in such a way that you don't even have to be technical, you don't need to know how to use, like everyone can. It's so accessible to absolutely everyone, from children to, you know, probably people of our parents' age and so on, you know, in different languages, it's incredible, right? But it carries such an insane power.
Yes.
And we're feeding it so much data. That question is obviously, like, I think, yes, it has to be somehow regulated, right? Like, how is it going to look like? The whole regulation of it?
Yeah.
I don't know. And I think, probably very little people know at this point, like, what's the most efficient way to regulate it? Because I feel like, as I said, like, since I studied AI, I think few things have completely changed, right? And we had this ethics in AI class when they were discussing, like, okay, what's gonna happen when Facebook, you know, takes our data, and then what about privacy issues, and what if we get personalized content online? It's like stuff that now seems like, oh wow, okay, now we are dealing with a completely different strength or power in that sense. But in fact, that didn't change. Back in the days, we're also saying, like, we're so, like, all the regulatory bodies are so behind the technological development, they're lagging behind immensely. So I feel like now we just need to figure out, like, how do we want to regulate it, like, right, and like how the regulation will look like. I don't have the answers, but I don't know. What would you say? Like, is it kind of, how would you envision it almost?
I wouldn't wait for the governments. And this is something we are initiating at the moment as well, to create an alliance between the stakeholders involved. So let's not wait for top-down decision making, saying, okay, we need to do this and this. This is the regulation. You cannot do this and that or that, because it will block innovation. It will block innovation. It will block accessibility to a wider audience as well, because it can bring a lot of benefits to people that are less. They have less availability to these kind of tools. So it should be coming from the stakeholders itself. So it's the researchers, it's the investors, it's the developers, AI companies, users, everyone involved. They should be involved within setting this framework to make sure that AI models are always in line with human values, that we always make sure that everything we develop is contributing to either happiness of the people or safety or transparency. And there are so many different human values, of course, but it should tick a lot of boxes. And if it is working against all these human values, then it will do harm to society in some form. And then we need to make sure that if this framework and this labeling, for example, is in place, we need to make sure that AI models are tested to that. And this is something, I think, in combination, because regulation and governance should be involved definitely, but it should be a balance, and it should not be just coming from top down.
Who sets the values, would you say, that we should follow then?
Everyone involved.
Okay.
So it's a democratized system. So it's testers, it's users, it's developers can add human values and say, okay, this is this to this extent, and there should be some consensus in here. And this is to be developed, of course, to be designed. But I believe strongly, and to be honest, we're working on this already. I think it would cover a lot, but it involves all the stakeholders that we need, and especially the ones, not the big tech companies, but everyone around to set the stage.
100%. 100%. I think that's exactly going to be the way forward. It sounds more like very utopian now, in a sense of like how we're going to set it up in practice. But I'm completely with you that we need to think of ways. Novel ways, right? Like, it's just not, instead of like having these like European institutions or like this one body kind of like governing top down, overlooking the AI, you know? So and I think investors can play a role as well. How do you see this? To an extent, 100%, in the sense that you can always choose what kind of companies you're backing, right? And what's kind of like, what's the future they want to see, right? So I feel like we don't not all the investors and not always we're asking ourselves when we're backing the companies, I think not too often, is that, okay, what happens if this becomes big, right? Like how will the world look like if this becomes humongous? And I feel like sometimes then it raises a lot of question marks when it comes like, okay, how people, founded Facebook and other like toxic kind of like platforms, but it's also money driven business. So it makes sense, but it's, I think that's something that we don't ask ourselves enough. Firstly, but I think if we look at like how AI empowers different founders, I think now with these auto GPT and AI agents, we're going to see that a lot more, for instance, like 1 or 2 entrepreneurs that just have an idea. They don't necessarily need to hire like, a huge dev team or sales team or marketing team. They just can actually introduce something to the market, come to the MVP much quicker in much more like capital efficient ways. And I think that's going to empower also people in very different environments and different circumstances to as well like establish and create businesses, right?
Is there certain environments you're thinking of?
So I think mostly what I think comes to my mind, so I can imagine like this democratization, right? That like, so in a sense that I feel like in my like hypothetical, my like kind of like, I guess, utopian view in a sense of like, or I'd like to remain positive in a sense that I feel like now all the VC funding goes to like a very similar homogeneous group of people. So it's mostly white men from Western countries, right? But that being said, and people that come from the same educational backgrounds, you say socioeconomic backgrounds, and people that are solving the same kind of problems, because it's like, it's so difficult to think about like, a very different problem if we all come from the same bubble and the same circles. And then people that are allocating capital are also mostly middle-aged white men from the same socioeconomic background, same education. That means that they're also going to be obviously giving capital to the people that they just, relate with mostly, or the problems that they deem worthy solving. So I feel like what that's going to open up. So I think from the funds perspective, people change will need to happen differently. I don't know how much AI power that is, but if we look at the startups, as I said, something that people will be able to create things and bring them to the market much quicker and much more capital efficiently. And that's going to also, that means it's going to open up the sort of like the realm or the stage for people that otherwise wouldn't get maybe funded by VCs, right? Yeah. And they will be able to test out their products, be entrepreneurs, try out things, solve the problems of the world without necessarily needing to, fit in the box of this sort of like ideal entrepreneur. So maybe people, people that come from different minorities, people that come from different geographies that no one looks at, people that don't have the same backgrounds. That's something that I believe in, that can actually, the AI will empower founders in that perspective.
So another box where AI will do good, right?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Is there any AI startups or verticals you're especially interested in momentarily? Or you like the most here personally?
Yeah, out of AI kind of like fields, right?
AI, but also non-AI. I'm also curious about that.
With AI, as I think now we're also being a bit cautious in the sense in a fund, and I feel like that's what all of investors are following, the idea that it's like, as I said, there's so much AI powered startups there's so much AI or generative AI, and then like you don't know is there really? And another thing, like how proprietary or how defensible are the solutions? And everyone is trying to work on kind of like similar problems. There are obviously some great, outliers there, but the majority. And then I think I'm a big believer in the sense of maybe we don't necessarily need like very AI-driven solutions to all the problems that exist, right? So I would even go on and say, I know it's an AI-driven podcast now, so it's a bit of a
but you can,
unpopular old-fashioned opinion, but more in the sense that I feel like there's so many other parts in our society that really need to be innovated, or like really need innovation. I mean, for instance, now not talk in like super hypotheticals, but like, for instance, like blue collar workers, or construction workers, the fact that they're being now super mistreated because, the whole visa process coming into EU is super complicated, super opaque. No one can vet the workers as well. So you never know who you're going to get, if it's going to actually be skilled or not. Yeah. So companies that are trying to, bring more transparency into that part of bringing construction workers from, for instance, from Uzbekistan, from Moldova into Finland, Germany, UK, how to also make sure that they have good experience, that they're being paid fairly, that they have the good conditions of their lives. For instance, or other people that are also now upskilling existing workforce into, green jobs, for instance, like solar panel installations, windmill installations, and so on. So I think I'm kind of like more keen. So that's just one example, more in the sense of illustrating that I guess my idea is that there's just so many other problems that we can solve, and it doesn't all need to cater to us, you know? Maybe there's also other innovation in other parts of our society that really needs to happen.
Yeah. So it's creating equality.
Yeah.
In this case again, so it's about making it as accessible for everyone, but also towards blue collar workers,
for instance,
giving the same chances and fair payment, etc. Is AI able to play a role here?
I think to some extent, I would say, but I feel like these kind of solutions, I mean, I could see it as like an added extra, right? To some extent, like if you want to go into like creating, I know one of the companies that is creating this kind of like vetting tool for workers, you know, dependent, like you can assess what kind of skills they carry, what kind of experience, to make that whole vetting kind of like automatic. I can see that as like good added values. Nice to haves, but more like I think just restructuring these kind of like old structured processes, maybe we don't need necessarily AI. You need some sort of like tech empowerment, I suppose. But what would it look like? Or does it just, you know, it's more manual? We'll see. But
And language barriers, because for example, we have AI that can enable you to speak in your own language, and a device translates it automatically in speech in another language. So a device enables you to speak one-on-one, but in your own language.
That's super cool.
Yeah,
that's super. I feel like I've seen some of your videos, and they look really insane. I mean,
there are some nice improvements here, but I see a good cause in taking away barriers or borders
100%.
In language and in also understanding culture, because it can sentiment analysis and all the cultural analysis can be implemented as well.
I think you touched upon a great top. So I think exactly that, because I know one of the companies that I mentioned previously, so this Estonian company that is working on kind of like relocation process of construction workers from Uzbekistan, for instance, now. So their main value add, or not main value add, but like the good advantage that they have over like, you know, Western founders, they come from Estonia, but they speak Russian. So obviously the Russian language is the main, you know, among like Uzbek kind of like workforce there. And that's how they can communicate. That's how they can vet workers over the phone and so on, bring them and, you know, deal with them in that manner. So, I could really see it as, for instance, like, you know, if that becomes a barrier for any other company that wants to innovate in that circle, that I could really see that as being a great value add. Yeah. 100%.
Talking about equality. Yeah. You're also ambassador at the Female Founders. Yes. Can you elaborate a bit on that?
Of course, happy to. So Female Founders as an organization is mostly, so they now also have their own fund, but they run a Grow F program, which is more for kind of like equity-free investment readiness program for female entrepreneurs, female founders, or like diverse founding teams. Okay. So there's two. And it's mostly, you just get assigned a female investor that works in different funds, from like very early pre-seed to, you know, growth stage funds. And then you mostly mentor the team. So for instance, like they want to polish, you know, like they need someone to go through their deck. They need some sort of like investor intros. They need polish their go-to-market strategy, their market calculations. Any of those, you know, we can be a helping hand in. And I feel like sometimes it's also for them to just have a nice sounding board and just, you know, build a relation with also like other female investors, because there's not that many to begin with. And then, you know, just also like maybe share their experiences, because I know from some female founders that, I mean, their experiences with some VC funds or investors have been horrible, right? Yeah. So I think sometimes just, you know, reassessing and seeing that, okay, actually, listen, this is not something that is wrong with you as a founder, like your business, or the fact that, you know, people don't take you seriously, maybe. It's just kind of like their problem and, you know, their issue from the VC perspective. So I think it's for that. But I empower, like, I think we also need to be careful with sometimes just catering that like extra female initiatives or programs, because I feel like sometimes it can come across as like, okay, so females are not good enough, so we need this like extra support to make them investment ready. But that's completely not what the program is about. So it's also females that have already raised significant rounds, but they just need some sort of like, you know, different advice or tap into different networks. So yeah, and empower. I think it's always the fact that like, I think you should be there for each other to to help each other
and
this way.
Is the amount of female founders so much smaller than male founders?
Yeah, 100%. I think, I don't know the stats, so you can't don't quote me on these numbers, but I think it's like, I want to say like 3% of like all the VC funding goes to female teams. So like more than, I'd say like largely like a chunk, like 90% of all the VC funding goes to all mostly white, again, male teams, which is, it's really sad in this day and age.
And I assume that it's not just out of all the founders, only 3% is female.
Oh, no. So some funds play the card of saying like, okay, that's like a pipeline issue, like there's not enough, right? Yeah. But it's nonsense. That's nonsense. Like, I mean, there's definitely a lot out there, but it's just the fact that, as I said, like if you're allocating the capital and you can't, I mean, some females will work on like, femtech products or different products that they deem important, because I mean, that's like 50% of the population, but for most male partners, like it's something that maybe they never resonate with, So they will disregard it and be like, I don't see that as an issue. So why allocate capital? Yeah. So there's some of these like kind of like anecdotal stories as well in the industry, but there's definitely, I wouldn't say it's a pipeline issue. I feel like there's definitely sufficient around. It's just more, we need to change maybe our criteria of assessing teams, right? Like what creates, what is a strong founding team and what is a good founder, I think, right? Like reassessing that in our minds as well to an extent.
I feel a bit embarrassed as a white male, almost middle-aged from a Western European country. What can we do to change this and to create this equal rights?
It's a very...
Or opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, it's, first of all, very sweet, I think, that you're asking. And I think I feel like there's so much we could do, but I feel like the most, it already starts with the fact that like, maybe just encouraging, young girls or young females to also go down the sort of like the tech route, the entrepreneurship route. That's one thing. And I feel like just always sort of having, each other's backs, as I said, and just kind of like trying to help each other in any way possible. Maybe, having, females on your podcast, for instance, I feel like that's also serves. So thanks for that.
Yeah. Absolutely. I want to take a step back to the VC world, because for some founders, I can imagine it's a kind of a black box. Yeah. VC, because there are terms, angel investors to VCs and LPs, and everything is mentioned. Can you explain in easy words for an AI startup or any startup founder why VC exists and what they can contribute to the startup?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I agree. I think the industry overall, I think before I even entered it, it was also like a complete black box. But okay, so VC, so it started off being, I think it was used to be called adventure capital. So which kind of is in the name, then you back the most breakthrough, the riskiest of ideas, right? Of all asset classes, this is like the most risky one. So you have like, obviously afterwards you have like private equity and so on. That's like more kind of like traditional businesses. So in VC, you have to back ideas that have, humongous potential, humongous growth potential. That means there's like obviously like only a few businesses out there, right? So I feel like the biggest mistake that sometimes also VCs make, and then startup also think that like, we need to go down the VC route, but like, do you really? Because that means you need to grow immensely and you need to be able to scale super, super quickly, super, super easily. So I think that's one thing that like needs to be alignment between VCs and startups. But overall VC as an industry, so how the portfolio sort of like maybe formation also happens, that we invest in companies, and then that 9 out of 10 companies will be write-offs, or they will make it somehow, but it's not going to be huge and it's not going to return your fund. And you bet that there's going to be 1 or 2 outliers who are going to return the fund, double it, triple it, quadruple it, 10x it if you're lucky. Yeah. So that's the whole idea, right? That like, and you're really backing like really moonshots. You're like, these are like, it sounds crazy, it sounds outrageous, but yes. So that's the kind of business that VCs should be backing and are backing. I think, as I said, sometimes we're just not asking ourselves enough that, or like we're just going for like very safe ideas that never make it big. But sort of that's the alignment. And there's obviously like very different stages. So we start off, that's where I work in kind of like very pre-seed. So we back, founders that just have an idea or an MVP. They go into seed, Series A, Series B, Series C, and that's like, much more advanced. And then different problems kind of arise, and you need to scale into different markets, acquire customers, obviously hire like bigger teams. So the ball kind of like starts rolling. And in every stage, you're sort of like de-risking a certain aspect of your business, if it makes sense. Yeah.
It seems like there's a lot of VCs out there.
Yes.
Enough or too many?
Too many.
Yeah? Why?
Short answer. I think there was a big boom, like a big spike of new funds establishing themselves in 2021, because we also saw there's so many companies with like an inflated valuation. There was like a mayhem happening in the market.
Yeah.
The issue is that they also invested in companies that had unsustainable valuations, did not have sustainable business models, they could not monetize and did not make any revenues, meaning that they could not raise another round that surpassed the previous valuation, so they had to downgrade, or some of them went out of business. So what happens is a lot of funds also suffered from that. Obviously, they had to write off a lot of companies. The portfolio was not that great. That means the limited partners that invest in the funds were also like, okay, well, this is not working, obviously. So then they're not backing the next fund, right? So what means is a lot of funds I know that are now really struggling to raise. So we will see a bit of like a sort of like a clear up of the market in some ways. But I think I hold this kind of like belief as well. It's like not everyone can be a founder, because it's a very high intensity, very much like you have to have a certain craziness in you and good, and in that sense. And I think the same happens with VCs. I mean, we don't need as many, because there's only a limited amount of number, I think, of startups that you can back. That means that, some VCs end up backing very suboptimal companies, I think, or not the companies that should not maybe going down the VC route. So, or people just that, have been mistreating founders badly and so on. So I feel like maybe there's going to be some correction in the market. And I think, honestly, I see it as a positive. Because I think once there's a surplus of, very mediocre cases, then it's, and it raises questions. I don't know.
I know that you are more on the real human interaction side, and that you are trying to create the bond with founders, even though you meet them for the first time. Yeah. To get a real understanding of the business. But there's a lot of VCs that don't. But is that the key to be able to stay alive and to find the real diamonds, unicorns, whatever you want to name them? Yeah,
I think I think you had a very, very good point on it. I think it's exactly that, right? So I think partly is obviously, I think reputation goes a long way, I think, in the industry. So I feel like that's exactly it. Like first of all, you need to be in the right place to meet the founders. You need to have the energy to, chase people down, meet them, talk to them, etc. Listen to them, as you said. Some people also don't have the, or don't try to listen at least to the founders. So I think there's these things, as well as like you need to be also some sort of like value add to the founders in some sort of capacity, right? Yeah. And I think, as you said, like I think you touched upon, I don't need to elaborate too much here, and I think you touched upon the exact thing is, right? Like the ones that can form, especially at the very early stages of investing, when it's less, like we don't look at Excels or like financial predictions too much. It's more like just literally us believing in the founders as they are. Then I think that's key. I think definitely, because again, founders can now choose, right? Who do they want to work with? And the best ones, or the people can choose, right? Like you're committing to work with that person or that investor for the coming years. So it might as well be someone that you can at least somewhat enjoy, speaking for 5 to 10 minutes a day. That's the kind of like mentality. So I think exactly.
Yeah, cool. There's now thousands of AI startups out there. Which kind of AI startups are you looking for now? What do you want to add to the portfolio?
So we're actually looking at like very broadly. So we're kind of like vertically agnostic. So everything, from like, everything's from like, AI in health tech, AI in art generation, AI in code generation. Like goes in like variety of ways. So I'd say, we don't have like a very specific niche one. So we just look at, everything. A lot of different verticals. Yeah. What are sort of like the trends that you're mostly interested in, you'd say?
Creating engagement, customer engagement. So giving voice or faces or real human interaction in a digital synthesized form. Like I said, increasing efficiency and effectiveness, but everything that enables us to spend more time for real human interactions, and that's what I am mostly interested in personally. So yeah, no, that's the focus.
Cool.
And there are plenty of AI startups now that think, okay, I want to do something. I have this crazy idea or good idea, and it will change the world. Or what should they do? What's their first step they should take? Yeah,
so I think the first step is come talk to me. But but maybe prior to that, I think if you just want to start, and I think it's always really difficult. And I mean, I also had like so many, every one of us probably have like so many different ideas, and then you're like, oof, where do I begin? I think the issue that we're seeing now in the market is that so many startups find solutions and then they try to fit it into a problem. Like, like you come up with something and then you realize, oh, the market actually doesn't even need it. The customers are not paying for it. Like there's no demand for it. So I think startups should just think, okay, what is the problem that I am personally passionate about? Like what inspires me, what drives me, where do I see the problem? And then by defining exactly what's the problem you want to solve, then you can look for a solution. Then you can start seeing, okay, does it make sense to go down, AI route? Does it make sense to go down a different route? What is it that I think drives you and you're passionate about it? Because I feel like sometimes people just like to, and I mean, I'm not saying that, oh yeah, I'm different. Like obviously, like everyone wants to ride a wave that, becomes popular. The same as like, as we said, like the same happened with Web3, the same one now with generative AI, same with AI, the same with what becomes trendy. Start seeing that, okay, the market is there for it. Maybe I should work on it as well. But I think first step is like to take a step back and be like, okay, what is it that actually I'm interested in? And what is maybe the problem that you really see that is important in solving? So I would say that would be the first step, just thinking about the problem.
And then reach out to you.
And then
you'll help them out.
And then that's it.
What is the next wave? So we have Web3, AI. Is it AI in Web3?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd know better, I think, about it.
I think it is. But
do you think so?
Yeah, definitely.
How do you envision it?
Web3 or blockchain can create this safer, ethically responsible framework for AI, and to have data storage and distribution, but also tokenizing assets. So if I put on my data, so I let my face be cloned, I put my data on blockchain, it's being tokenized, and I always own and govern what's happening with my data. So the issue with the ownership, for example, of images that was there was I believe it was Getty Images that was that was going to sue one of the AI companies because the logo was visible in the outcome of the generative art AI. So they were suing because it proved that their data was being used while the pictures on the platform were owned by someone else. So this is an ownership issue. When you do this on blockchain, the owner of the photo, for example, I take my photos of landscapes and I put them on the platform as a dApp on blockchain. I need to approve if another scraper or a platform wants to use it. I need to approve it, and if I approve, I get rewarded for it as well. So it's a plus and plus. So
like that,
I do see a lot of benefits in moving AI to Web3. Is it a new wave? I don't know. I was just
it's two
trying
waves
to
merging.
put something together. But I think there's a lot of possibilities here, and we will see in the near future.
That's super exciting.
Is there any AI prediction you want to get into? Any crazy ideas, or maybe as an entrepreneurial mind, did you say, I would love if I could develop this kind of AI?
If I had that idea, I would already I think I would be working on it now. It's a great question. I think that's something that I ask myself for sure. Like, what is that next thing, or what would I'd like to see in the world next? But I think I'm just horrible at making like these kind of like predictions. Okay, like what's what is it going to look like? But I'd be very curious if you have one.
Yes,
and then maybe
you
I
can
get
borrow mine,
inspired.
actually. You can borrow
or steal it.
steal it, use it
and
together, or
develop
work together. No, our professor, Nico Sebe, he's a professor in the University of Trento, our head of AI. He predicted in one of the previous episodes of the podcast that the next big thing is going to be not text to video or text to speech. It's the narrative AI using the brains. Mm-hmm. So we use brainwaves to create text, or we use brainwaves to create speech. So it enables us to use our minds without doing anything else to create a text as output. And this would be mind blowing if this happens. And we already see that it is going to happen. There are some examples of maybe you've seen it. Mm-hmm. Test with helmets, and by concentrating you can let a train run around. If you concentrate, it starts moving just by analyzing the brainwaves. And I think with your scientific background, this might be an interesting one.
I'll take it.
You'll take it. Yes. Where can we sign?
No, it's super cool. I think that's exactly it. I think it's something that we already been. Something that this kind of like innovation was something that like everyone kind of spoke about. Like it seems super utopian, dystopian, whatever it is, but like it seemed insanely futuristic. Yeah. Stuff that you see in the movies. But it would be, it's amazing. I think it has an amazing potential, especially if we look at like, for instance, like for patients, right, that are locked in and can't actually
speak anymore.
Move or speak, then I can see the large potential. For us, it's more like enhancing ourselves to some extent, which is also an interesting topic. But we'll park that one for next time because I think we can talk about it for forever. Is there anything else you want to share or give to AI startups as an advice? Or I think honestly just just for everyone, not necessarily maybe an AI, just like if you feel passionate about something, I think just do it. I think really do something that inspires you and go for it. And I think and again, talk to me.
Of course.
That's it. No, but for the rest, honestly, it's been a pleasure. So that's maybe all what I'm gonna say. Thank you so much.
No, thank you again, and great having you here. And I hope to talk to you again soon. Let's follow up this conversation.
Definitely.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. It was a great pleasure to have Gabrielle here, and I hope to see you again soon. If you have any specific person you want me to invite, or you have any questions, please drop it in the comments, and we'll get back to you. Thank you, and see you soon. Bye.